because when it comes to marketing and branding, you got to understand, why do people believe you? Why do people trust you? And most importantly, why do people want to buy from you? Whatever it is you're buying, right? It could be your reputation, your brand, your product, your education. And I really thought it's very important for me to leave this knowledge that I've gained for our kids, all of our kids. Because if we don't, what are we leaving behind, right? So I thought this stuff is just very important, not just beyond the house, affordable housing, and learning how to underwrite deals. Your ability to communicate, your ability to persuade someone, right? Think about how massive of a problem affordable housing is. If you can't convince others or you can't enroll the help of others, we will never solve this problem. So this gets a little bit beyond the technical things that we typically talk about, but it's equally as important, if not more important. So let's talk about the next triggers, right? So the first trigger is called the goldfish trigger. And this is where you have to recognize that the average person has a shorter attention span now than a goldfish, which is about 5, 6 seconds. So when you create content now, you have to say the most important thing first. I think I heard from Mr. Beast, great YouTube content creator, and he talks about how you, when you click on a thumbnail, right, on YouTube, you have to confirm the thumbnail first in the first 30 seconds. Now, in this similar situation where now I'm learning, okay, when I create podcasts now, in the beginning, I was just doing this really long intro, talking a lot of things, when really I should have been getting into it right away. That's a principle I should have followed, but I did not do that in the beginning. Had I knew that in the beginning, I probably would have started cutting trailers way earlier. But it's very important that, hey, whatever topic you have for your podcast title now, I try to make sure I can answer that within the trailer so that if anybody only has about 1 to 3 minutes, they can get the most important nugget out of that, even though there's plenty more nuggets. But that's where I realized that if you cannot make your point in the first minute, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the content was. It doesn't matter how good the rest of the podcast conversation was, because someone will never stay for the whole thing. And that is sad. So stop worrying about keeping people on as long as possible and more worry about giving them everything that they need up front. Okay. Now, those dark triad narcissism type of triggers, right? Psychopathy. This is the one of the triggers that they talk about, right? Where they, you need to understand that most humans, they love themselves. So when you are able to use the word you more often, that makes a huge difference. Stop saying I. Your call with folks should really be about 80% of them talking and maybe 20% of you asking questions that make them talk more. You have to think about this, right? And he gave this stat that 30% of men have above average psychopathy, which means they have lower anxiety and they don't really operate out of fear, right? They're more adventurous. They are looking for pleasure. So you got to talk about the pleasurable aspects of what you're trying to convince them on, persuade them to buy, etc. So when you're talking to those folks, you can't operate from a perspective of fear, right? You might say that, hey, you're boring, man. Let's do this, right? Or you can always make it back. That's how you adjust your angle and your messaging to cater to that personality, because you got to understand it's not a one size fits all thing. All right. Then he talks about the sexiness bias. Interesting, right? And he uses Apple again as an example, right? We talked about the novelty trigger yesterday. But when you are able to make something that looks simple, sleek, beautiful, right? It's as simple as that. Those products are more attractive. How about your website, right? How do you make that look nicer? How do you look that more visually appealing? Having 5 pictures on your website might be better than having one or none, right? Good packaging. That is what sometimes make or break a product. So think about that. All right. Then there is the intelligence trigger. If you want to be intelligent, you have to figure out how to learn to be associated with folks that are intelligent. And this could be as simple as learning to quote people. Good job, Sully. When you quote philosophers or folks that are traditionally very, very intelligent or commonly known to be very intelligent in the branding, and you quote them, right? Then
Mm.
by your brand being associated with them, then people would believe that you're more intelligent and they're much more likely to trust folks that they perceive to be intelligent. And that's all it is. Next trigger, believability. Whatever you're doing, whatever message, it has to be believable. If you start out and say, hey, my digital course is going to help you become a billionaire, it's not very believable. Not a lot of people are going to believe that. Like, oh, this one course is going to make me a billionaire. No. If you say, hey, you're going to go from making whatever your salary is to 100 grand per month, also not very believable. You might think that number is okay, but a lot of people can't make that leap with you. So you have to say believable things because if it sounds too good to be true, people will turn you off, right? It's not the most aggressive marketing that wins. It's the most believable marketing. So think about that, right? And that's why I think my messaging now is when you listen to the Affordable Housing podcast, the most believable aspect is I honestly believe it that you will get enough knowledge to learn about affordable housing in development to land a career in affordable housing. Whatever that might be, it could be asset management, it could be underwriting, it could be capital raising, it could be financing, it could be accounting. But to me, that's believable. And I honestly believe it because if you understand all this knowledge and you're able to regurgitate this information back in like an interview, then that helps you get through the door. That's what's important, right? All right. Let's talk about improv or improvising. When you when you ever watch like a person giving a speech and they sound very scripted, it almost turns you off, right? But when there's a little bit of improvisation, right? Sometimes people say or mix in just a little bit, not to create doubt in their confidence, but it helps them understand or helps the people listening that oh, they're not reading off a script. They're actually conversing with me, they're talking with me alongside me, helping me. That creates believability, authenticity. So it's almost like a double trigger, right? And you have to understand that people will buy a product that might be inferior to yours if it feels more authentic than whatever your product is. So my lesson for my kids is and our kids is this: don't try to be so perfect. There's no need to be perfect. This is idea up there that we have of what perfect looks like. And in fact, it's actually not as effective. It's not. It's not as effective to be perfect. I don't need or want my kids to be a straight A+ student because then they can get used to not being perfect. That opens borders, their boundaries, opens their minds so that they can expand and think about things a little bit differently and be more relatable. Because if you're trying to be perfect, it's very lonely up there, and you can't make an impact by yourself. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Saturday today. Thank you so much for being part of all the lives. 568 days. There's been days where I think about not doing it that day, but I wouldn't take it one day at a time. I want to stay consistent. And I honestly thought, hey, what if this is the day that my daughter picks up something that's really important? So I encourage all of you to start your own YouTube channel, not for yourself, not for your own brand, but if it helps motivate you, do it for your kids. Do it for your kids because you never know when your time might come. And you never know where one thing you might say on one of these videos is going to impact them forever. That's how you show love for your family. We have this saying all the time like, oh, I'm doing it for my family. Do this for the family, because what are you leaving behind if you don't leave behind the lessons, the skills, the relationship, the information that you have acquired over your life for them? All right. I hope you all have an amazing Saturday. Spend that quality time with your family and friends today. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 569. Have a good one.